I've got good sound. All right, let's just jump right into this motherfucker.
Hell yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. This just in on Cranked and Ranked. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Cranked and Ranked, the podcast / YouTube show where two blokes rank albums from artists and other stuff and have big old long ass conversations, and you love it. And the coffee is really kicking in.
I was gonna say the caffeine's hit.
It's like all of a sudden I just got this rush
Surge.
of energy.
Yeah.
I'm so ready. All right. So yes, Cranked and Ranked. If you're new, welcome. If you're a peanut butter platypus, we appreciate you. As usual, your host, Old Head, here to guide you along in the madness of it all. And with me, as always, Mr. Eddie Sparxx.
What the fuck is up?
Woo! All right. That was
That's
that was
the most high energy intro we've ever had.
all right.
Next
so
week I'll be like, "What's up, brother?"
Yeah. And then I'll do an even better Ric Flair with my woo. That's
You're
is that
like,
it?
Oh, yeah, you're gonna be like, okay, Eddie with his number 7. Let me tell you something, brother.
Or then maybe it'll just end up becoming what was that politician's name? Something Dean. He does the
Howard Dean.
I love that.
Dude made a noise and ruined his career.
But I love it.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing. That's the kind of thing that makes me happy when somebody just makes such a you can tell he was so happy that he made that kind of noise that you would only make if you were that happy. So
Yeah.
good for him for having a moment of happiness in his life. People, fuck.
He had a Super Mario moment. Woohoo!
All right. So today we are going to be ranking the full albums discography of Fear Factory, and
Scary Warehouse.
it's that was their first name, and then they went, that's not working. Because it doesn't sound good when you yell it over like a PA, like, ladies and gentlemen, Scary Warehouse. It doesn't sound very good.
Actually, I think it has kind of a ring to it.
Really? Well, we'll start a Fear Factory cover band called Scary Warehouse. Anyway, 10 albums, 10 full-length studio albums from Fear Factory, and it's a pretty timely ranking here because we're literally like closing the book on the Burton C. Bell era of Fear Factory because he's no longer in the band. They got a new singer. Seems like neither one of them really ever want to have anything to do with each other ever again. So, so we're here to wrap it all up before they get on with another album and of the same shit. So yeah, we're going to be ranking these, and I'll get into it when I start talking about the albums. And we've got 10, so let's move through this motherfucker. First off, we start talking about where the band came into our lives. And for me, it was 1993-ish. Yeah, I think it was probably 1993 when so Soul of a New Machine came out, and then it was announced that there was going to be a tour in 1993 that I didn't go see, unfortunately, that was Sepultura, Clutch, Fudge Tunnel, Fear Factory.
Holy fuck.
That was the tour.
That's
and so
bill.
I think because of that tour announcement, because I was already really into Clutch, Fudge Tunnel, and Sepultura. And I was like, oh, well, who's this other band coming with this badass bunch of bands? So I heard Soul of a New Machine and absolutely loved it. Because, and I'll get into the reasons why I love it when I talk about that album, but just as quickly as they were part of my life and I loved them, they completely fell off with everything they did after, because I wasn't interested enough to keep up. But they are a band that throughout the past, 25 years or so, whenever a song pops up, I'm all like, oh, all right, that's pretty good. So it's not for lack of like not really liking what they were doing. It was just not anything that pulled me in like, oh, you really need to get into this. But now, because of our show, I've fully gotten into all of it. And so, yeah. So what about you?
For me,
Grand Theft Auto.
actually, no, not this time. Not this time, actually. It's not a. Funnily enough, it's not a video game related introduction with this one.
Which is weird because it seems like this should be the video game related band.
Yeah, like it would fit right at home on anything involving space combat or machines, but strangely, it hadn't crossed paths. That being said, I basically was looking for more music to get into. I'd kind of exhausted my collection at that point, and I was like, "Hey, my uncle's got a shitload of CDs. Maybe I can borrow some off him and rip them all onto my iPod." And they have gradually just become part of my collection, and they sit in this here cabinet right here at the bottom.
Does your uncle know how important he was to your musical development?
Absolutely, we went to
Okay.
we've been to a lot of gigs together, but
Cool.
yeah, it's a cool cool friendship we have.
Yeah.
But yeah, the what is it? God, it was definitely demanufacture and like an original CD. So at that point, when I first heard it, it was you're talking like 18 years old. 2013. I was 15 years old when I first heard
Okay.
demanufacture. And I literally just saw the album cover and I thought that looks fucking sick. Let me check this out.
Yeah.
I stuck it on, and the thing that really drew me in was like I had heard the first couple songs, and I'd heard what they were playing in modern metal a lot of times. But
Yeah.
then like track 3, which is Zero Signal, I think, all of a sudden I hear da-dung, dung, da-dung, and it kind of like cottoned on. I was like, this song's about Terminator. And then come to find they've made a career out of it. So, I mean, when you're getting a Fear Factory album, you do kind of know what you're getting to,
Yeah.
to varying levels.
Yeah.
But holy shit, I was sold at that point. I was like, oh, this is fucking rad. Groove metal with somehow they have this way of being machine levels of precise while having a groove to it as well, which is a total juxtaposition. But their subject matter tends to cover the fight between man and machine, so I guess that kind of works out. Really, it's a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
This band and what they sing about. So yeah, that's my Fear Factory introduction. Oh,
Cool.
and I remember when Genexus came out when I was in college as well. And when I heard Soul Hacker, I continuously used that to just test speaker systems. I was like, this can handle the bass drop at the start of this song. I'm sold.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, let's
Yeah. Let's just start ranking as usual.
let's get
Eddie-
to the ranking.
Eddie Sparxx starting us. Did I call? I just call it. It was like Eddie Sparxx. I don't
Eddie
know why.
Sparxx.
I don't know why I said
Edward
it that way.
Sparxx the third. Yes.
All right. 10 albums to rank. Let's start with Eddie Sparxx's number 10 Fear Factory album.
Okay, so my number 10 Fear Factory album is, tends to be the bottom pick for most people from what I've seen. It's the second album without Dino, Transgression.
Hey, also my number 10.
Okay, let's just dive in. So 540,000 degrees Fahrenheit, cool opener, mouthful of a song title.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it peaks pretty early because I'm like, okay, that was a cool song. Transgression has a cool riff. Spinal Compression was the point at which, I really began to notice the album suffering from a pretty glaring issue of mid 2000s metal production in that all of the toms were
Yeah.
clipping like fucking crazy, and I was like, are they just like really fast double strokes? No, no, they're just really farty because they're clipping, which is, you know, not pleasant to listen to. And what that inherently ends up doing is it makes it loud without any oomph. So it's just lacking in what made pretty much every album before it fucking bump, regardless of the songwriting or not.
And right there, you have an example of the battle between man and machine.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. I understand this album now. It's a critique. It was intentional, but yeah,
It's not about Skynet. It's about Pro Tools. That's what the whole that's what the whole thing is about.
Oh man.
One day Pro Tools becomes aware,
Yeah.
self-aware.
Ruins the music industry by itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got Contagion. It's got some chonky riffing in it. Empty Vision. Again, this album's production is unfortunately loud without the oomph of previous albums.
Yep.
Echo of My Scream is a ballady kind of track. Supernova is a crack at a more melodic rock take on Fear Factory. Now this is actually something I kind of like about this album. Their foray into a bit more of a melodic thing seems like a cool evolution, because I think had it had a bit more of a weighty production behind it, as opposed to pretty much a neutered, compressed to fuck clip fest, it would, you know, it would probably, you know, it would be a departure from their style, but on the flip side, it would still sound good. New Promise, ballad meets heavy, a la Hollow by Pantera. Sadly, not as good though. I will follow. I can always appreciate a band doing something different. Like I said, if they'd gone down this route a little more on this album, I might like it a bit more. But that chorus is a bit clunky though, with all that walk away, ah, walk away, ah. You know, that's when you write a vocal line and forget you have to breathe. And the sad thing here is I'm about to drop this bombshell. Millennium. It's always unfortunate when an album's best song is a cover, but that's what happens when you cover this Killing Joke banger of a song. The original's great. This one is a good cover. Production aside. Moment of Impact. Chunky closer. Honestly, this album had moments that pricked my ears up and made me go, that was genuinely interesting. But unfortunately, as a whole, it's too unfocused and succumbs to some unfortunate side effects of 2000s metal production. With that, I'm going to let you get your transgression rant out of the way before we proceed.
Yeah, mine will be pretty short. I'm going to preface everything by saying this. This was probably, out of all the rankings we've ever done, the most equal parts boring and aggravating album rankings I've ever had to do. Which is unfortunate, because I went into it really looking forward to this. But by the time I got to this, because I literally just started from the beginning and went all the way through the albums. I even took day breaks where I did a few albums and then another few albums, just so, because it got tiring. But once I got to this album, with the sixth album, I was so just done with them just doing the same shit over and over again to varying degrees of success, that my notes literally say, Transgression, 2005, more of the same, now with shitty production. So that is literally all I have to say about Transgression. Because like every single one of their albums has something in various spots where I go, that's pretty cool. But eventually it becomes, that's pretty cool. In the same way, those 10 other things were very similarly cool in the other songs that they already did them in. And so the formula wears very thin very quickly for me. So if it doesn't have good production to back it up, or if the songs aren't as well written as some of their other songs, it immediately, it's like just turn the fucking switch off on me, because I'm just like, nah, can't do it. So that's why Transgression ended up number 10. And that's also why a lot of the albums, at least on the lower half of this, ended up where they did, because too much of the same, and most of it's not that interesting to me. So
Yeah, that's like I was saying, Supernova and I Will Follow are, some of my favorite moments on the album because they
mm,
are different, they're a band known for doing chunky death metal, groove metal sort of stuff, and they do a
yeah,
melodic rock song. If they'd done a whole album of that, I might have a greater appreciation for it. Like I said, production wise, unfortunate, but yeah, Transgression is the album for me where it was clear, wow, these guys need to rejuvenate themselves with in some way, shape, or form because damn, dude. But yeah, that being said,
moving on to number 9.
okay, so number 9, I've gone with The Industrialist.
Okay, we didn't match up this time, but okay.
Okay, well, this album was done without a live drummer and instead uses programmed drums. I'm not one to be a snob about that, and if there's a band that can justify it, it's Fear Factory.
Sure.
However, I think that kind of colored my image of the music going in. I already knew that this is the album they don't have an actual drummer on. And
Yeah.
I became very hyper aware of what I was listening to was a plugin. And even the production itself, it sounds that way, it's kind of bookended by two albums that I think have really good production for what they do, Mechanize and Genexus.
Yeah.
But this one in the middle, for some reason, just sounded a little bit, flat to me. The Industrialist is a blasty opener, recharger. Love a pinch harmonic, that first riff is very Slipknot to my ears. New Messiah is Fear Factory doing Fear Factory. Now, I know I've done a track by track for this, but that's going to appear quite a few times, such as, wow, great bass, as we previously had. But yeah, God Eater is a bouncy chugger, Depraved Mind Murder. Again, like I say, knowing that this album was done with programmed drums, there's an element of me that notices it, but wonders if I would have if I didn't know that going in. But there's a very clicky side to this production that there's a click to weight ratio that's a bit off.
Yeah.
Virus of Faith. Now, I love when they do the left-right hard pan stuff, like like
Yeah. Yeah.
that, like syncopated hard pan stuff is like, oh, yeah, me likey. Difference Engine. I half expected the riff to turn into Becoming around the 37-second mark because it goes into that da-da-da like bit. Disassemble, no disassemble, Johnny Five. Religion is flawed. Now here's, pardon me. This is the part of the album where I was like, okay, are they going to do one of the big closers for the album? But no, they do Religion is Flawed because Man is Flawed, which is a short interlude, unlike the title. And then you get Human Augmentation, and the last 9 minutes of this album is basically a soundscape. So you get Disassemble and then 2 more tracks, which is kind of like that 9 Inch Nails album, The Slip, which is like,
oh yeah,
it ends with basically 2 Ghosts songs, but he had it laying around, so he just kind of tacked it on the end, and that's how I kind of felt about this. All in all, it's there's like hills and valleys with Fear Factory. This being one of the valleys, unfortunately.
yeah.
So with that, it's Fear Factory doing Fear Factory with a less weighty feel to it and a bit too machine-like on account of the program stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It was funny you made that as soon as you made the Short Circuit reference, I'm like, oh, that's what Fear Factory should do, an album that the theme of it is Short Circuit. And then
they've probably done it. they've probably said like, this is a critique of the military industrial complex and the separation of church and state. Meanwhile, it's about fucking Short Circuit too.
Oh yeah, and then one of the songs will be like, "Los locos kick your ass, Los locos kick your face."
Los locos kick your balls into outer space. Yeah.
All right, you're welcome, Dino. That's your idea for an album. Let's do the Short Circuit 2 album. Anyway,
Don't
that's
even
not
do one. Just drop them
No.
in at 2. Yeah.
no. Don't worry about number 1.
Yeah.
Although it would be nice to get a nod to Steve Guttenberg, but whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's not my number 9. My number 9 is the 2001 album Digimortal,
Oh.
which is their 4th album. And a big thing for me is that what was the name of the album before this one? I think it was Obsolete.
Yep.
I really enjoyed Obsolete, and then this one to me was a pretty big step down, and because I'll get to it when I talk about Demanufacture, but there's a point where their sound, because I came onto them. I didn't. I was sorry, gentlemen. I got into them for Soul of a New Machine. Soul of a New Machine has a very organic quality while still incorporating this sort of industrial thing along with like almost a death metal thing. And then very quickly it seemed like that's not what they were trying to do. And what a lot of times it ends up being is this really sterile sound to me with really generic riffs that are just played really well. It's like there's only so much that you can do before I go, oh, great, chugging on D. All right, everybody's chugging on D. Or that's what she said. But you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's back to that again. And on top of it, it's just the way that it's presented. Like it's got so much aggressive shit on it, but at the same time, it feels lifeless. Like it's the weirdest combination of things for what they're doing, where sometimes it's like we have industrial influences. They don't go far enough with that. We have metal influences. Sometimes those are like neutered because of the other ideas that they have. It just seems like it's almost like because this is supposed to be like the conclusion of the trilogy, and I think like they really like tried to drive home like, here's an example of how dull metal will become when the machines take over. Like this is Digimortal. It's like, here you go, everyone. It's a concept album where metal it just becomes but it's not to say that it's not well done. It's just there's something about it that's just so like doesn't move me at all. It's very strange. And even like you get to the point where like we got to the song Back the Fuck Up with Be Real from Cypress Hill. I was so ready to like this. I'm like, oh yeah, come on, be real, let's do it. And like halfway through the song, I'm like, fuck, how could you fuck this up? And it's just very, there's nothing for me in this album whatsoever. And the fact that it followed one that I did really enjoy just made me go, oh man, sorry guys. Yeah, but they really very quickly get into riff blur and song blur for me, because you got to be a huge Fear Factory fan to know what song is on what album. Because at a certain point it's like, which one is this one? I don't know. Sounds like Prong. Anyways, that was my number 9. What was that album called again? Digimortal.
Digimortal.
Why every time I see that title, I think of Pokemon for some reason.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe that's what this concept was. Digimon. But yeah. Okay, I actually like that album a little bit more, but I won't give away its place.
Okay.
My number 8 is Archetype.
Which one is that? Archetype.
That's the brown looking one. First one without Dino. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Now, this one proved that they were capable of doing Fear Factory without Dino.
Yep.
But also like Dino. So, with
Yeah.
that, slave labor is an ass kicking opener. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. That really kicks the door down.
And
Cyber
butts. Hits
Waste,
doors and
yes,
butts at the same time. It is a
doors.
multitasking track.
Hell yeah. Like Cyber Waste, gnarly halftime riff in this song. Act of God has an awesome pre-chorus going on. Drones, groovy ass riffage. There's a real groove to a lot of the stuff on here. Archetype has some big epic synth orchestration as per standard Fear Factory affair. Corporate cloning. Blast beats, anyone? Bite the Hand That Bleeds. Ballady track with a cool chorus. Undercurrent is a melodic kind of song. Default Judgment has like a gnarly bass growl to it. Bone Scraper. Reading that title makes me wince a bit. It takes a lot for gore to have much effect on me, but the moment you get into scraping bone, that's fucked up. Right? Just fucking end it. Like Human Shields, another melodic one. Ascension.
It's so funny that your mind went to pain and mine went to sex. I'm like, yeah, Bone Scraper. Man, that chick was a real
on two different wavelengths.
That
today.
chick was a real bone scraper.
You're fucking horny today, man. Of it. Easter's a good time for you, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's the fertility or time or whatever. What is it? I don't know anything about religion.
Old heads in heat. Let's just put it that way.
That sounds like an interesting porno title. Old Heads in Heat.
For fuck's sake. Oh, featuring Eddie Spunks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ascension is this soundscapey kind of closer. And I don't know if you listened to the same version that I did, but there's a Nirvana cover at the end of School.
I avoided that at all costs because I have never in my life heard a Nirvana cover that was good. It's literally like I can't. Everyone drives me up to the fucking wall how bad they are. And so when I was going through these albums, I just went off here.
Friend.
You know what? That's one of the better ones because at least I giggle at that one. I listened to just the original track listing of all of these because I didn't want to get overwhelmed, which I did by all of the stuff here. But yeah, so what did you think of the cover?
Sounded like Fear Factory covering a Nirvana song. It didn't have a visceral piss me off effect so much as it was just like, oh well, they played it in their style. But if I want to listen to School, I'm going to listen to the Nirvana version. Really, yeah. I view tacked on covers in one of two ways. An attempt at some crossover appeal, or they had some fun with it and they stuck it on. And if they want to put it at the end and it doesn't fuck with the actual track order, same as what they did with Cars on Obsolete.
Yeah.
That kind of is what it is. It's probably just a little fun for them on their end, but it's not a Fear Factory song. It's Fear Factory covering something. But yeah, like I say, Archetype, we're in a zone now where I'm like, can't really poke any holes in it apart from the fact that Fear Factory have done this many times,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This ranking is less about, good versus bad and more just which is the best version of this thing,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Sometimes it feels to me like if you're going along with the Machine theme, it's like there's a Fear Factory album and it's been photocopied. And then for one album, they change the cartridge so it's a little bit of a better photocopy. And you're like, that's what. And then the next one, it's a little faded and some of the colors are run out. And you're like, this it's not really that good.
Well, you could even apply it to their album art at this point because it has the FF.
Oh, dude!
Going on.
On Apple Music, there's all these there's remix albums and all this stuff, and I go, are these all the same album? They all have the same album cover.
Yeah, yeah. It's certainly a situation where a band came across something that worked and just fucking ran with it.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Are you done?
to
Are you done with
varying
that one?
degrees. Yeah, like I was saying, over to you. Your number 8.
My number 8, you already talked about it. The Industrialist from 2012.
There it is.
So okay. Look, first off, this album sounds like an album that was made by two dudes, and it was. It was just Burton and Dino. But I don't think it's awful. The thing that was really disappointing about this is that, you know, I always like read like a little blurb about the album while I'm listening to it, and it said that, you know, all the drums were programmed drums, and I was ready for some real industrial shit. But to be completely honest, the drums sound just like the drums on every other Fear Factory album, and so I'm just like, okay, well,
Without
this is
the
really
slight weight that a real drummer brings. You know?
there are a couple of their albums that literally it just sounds like programmed drums anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I was like, if they had leaned into the programmed drums part and had every song have some fucking whack ass drum sound, I would have been totally on board with this album, because they could have written sort of the same kind of songs they'd already done. But if you present it in a way where you're leaning into the fact that, look, this is two dudes, we're in the studio, we're creating this stuff in the studio with a drum machine or whatever, programmed drums, like just be a little more inventive and exciting with it. But they literally just crafted an album that's just the same old shit, and it's just it kind of sucks. And songwriting wise, it's just bland, samey riffs, the riff blur, the song blur. I just feel like, yeah, it doesn't have anything going for it except for the fact that it's not as bad as the other two albums. I don't know, but like, and it may have been higher if they really had just done an electronic kind of style album. And I know that they save that for like remixes and other shit, and that's all fine and dandy. But I just feel like they're a band they've done 10 albums where they, like I said, they flirt with this sort of industrial, but at the end of the day, it doesn't sound that industrial to me. It just sounds overproduced, and that kind of bums me out. Like if I want to, like you know, you brought up Nine Inch Nails. He would have some songs with organic sounding drums, and another one where I don't know what the fucking drum sound is. So what, you know, it's like a fucking gravel dropping on the ground as part of the fucking, you know, sound, and I'm like, that's fucking great. But they don't ever do that, and so. Yeah, I wasn't impressed by this album. It didn't do anything for me. And yeah.
Cool. Okay, so my number 7 is the most recent offering, Aggression Continuum.
All right.
So it's the newest album in the Fear Factory catalog, the final album with Burton C. Bell on vocals.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure it was actually like, wasn't it recorded like 6 years ago or something? Didn't they? Weren't the vocals laid down in like 2017?
Well, if I remember right, what happened was they recorded the album, and then Burton left the band, and there was a big.
He fucking left the band.
And then there was like, I think, a legal battle, and that held things up with the album, and so it finally came out several years later. But anyway.
Exclamation point.
It's got I love Lars so much because he seems like a dude that I want to hang out with, and on top of that, he's given me so much comedy gold over the years.
It's funny. I've recently I didn't get to watch more than a few minutes of it earlier, but I stumbled upon there's like a 45-minute unedited, well, say unedited. It's pretty uncut footage of Metallica like taking calls at a radio station, and it's from like
it's from the box set. It's from the box set.
Yeah. I saw it earlier, and like I just see Lars younger than I am now. Yeah. In that room, and he's just such a dorky little guy. You know, I just want to hang out with him. You know. He looks like
Yeah,
he'd do well on this show.
yeah, I agree. I think that the biggest crime that Lars Ulrich ever pulled was just having confidence. People don't like that.
Yeah.
Because like that's it. That's like he's a dude he seems confident, but he also seems very friendly, and people have just been like, "Well, fuck you for being confident."
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Um,
But
speaking of which, next episode,
yeah,
will have something to do with Lars Ulrich.
yes, he's gonna stick 50 grand up our ass. $1 at a time.
Yeah. All right. What number 7?
Yep. Number 7, aggression continuum. Let's dive in.
Yep.
Recode. With the rapid exponential growth of AI, it's not hard to conceive a future where some sort of Skynet-esque event occurs. Like, we were, just last year fucking around with that. Was it like DALL-E Mini crayon online image generator? Did you ever mess around with that?
No.
You type in like Will Smith eating spaghetti and it like comes up with this fucked up rendition that looks almost lifelike, but it's a little bit uncanny. Yeah, that's moved on to video now. There is video of like gnarled up Will Smith just wolfing down spaghetti, and it's just slightly frightening to me that has advanced at the speed that it has. I'm not even talking about the music at this point. These guys have a point here.
No, I think what's going to end up happening is that people are going to start making fake videos of people they don't like.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm fucking scared of.
So it's gonna end up being, I mean, I'm way down the line because I'm not even kind of famous, but
Sparxx drowns 50 puppies, like
eventually it's just gonna be old head is a sexist racist, and it's gonna be a whole like me going off on a tirade, and I'm just like, that's not me, but.
Best way to tell, count the fingers. If it's got fucked up looking hands, it ain't a real photo. Right now.
Right now.
Yeah. Eventually it will learn. 6 fingers is right, isn't it? That's what I've got. Yeah. No, but yeah. Going back to Fear Factory, I just thought I'd get that off my chest. Disruptor. Awesome stuff.
I barely know her.
Jesus Christ. Aggression continuum, killer riffs. See, that's the thing. There's nothing inherently bad about pretty much these albums going forward. It's just, like we say, varying degrees of a similar thing. Purity is melodic and grooving. Fuel Injected Suicide Machine. Now that is a metal song title. That's some like... Well, half of that is a death song title. It's just Fuel Injected. Collapse, filthy breakdown in this song. Manufactured Hope. I love ride cymbal bells that are panned hard left and right, so you get the ding thing. Whenever that's thrown in, wonderful stuff. Cognitive Dissonance. Fear Factory doing Fear Factory. Monolith is heavy and catchy. And End of Line, standard close with the longest song, Fear Factory move. At least it's a song this time,
Yeah.
It's like they pretty much close out every album with a long song, and it's either an actual song or just 9 minutes of machine noise. It's cool to hear. It's cool to hear, but I've heard it done.
Yep.
Better several times. So yeah, with that aggression continuum, I we're gonna start rattling these off pretty quickly because we've pretty much exhausted the components.
My number 7 is one you've also already talked about, Archetype from 2004. Their 5th album, and I found this one more enjoyable than Digimortal, but still just more of the same. Mm-hmm. At this point in their discography, I had just gotten so tired of the same kind of shit, and it got annoying by this point too, because there would be songs that had really interesting parts that I go, oh, I like where this is going, and then it gets sabotaged by some same old type of shit.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, once again, I've learned that it doesn't matter who's writing the fucking songs, because I really don't see much of a difference between Dino and whoever else is writing, because I really feel like a lot of us could just write Fear Factory songs. But
Just take cut rate by prong and quantize the fuck out of it.
there you go. Yeah, but like I said, all of these albums have songs that if they just randomly came up on their own and I wasn't listening to a shitload of Fear Factory all in a row, I would probably hear it and go, it's pretty cool. But in this context, it's like, I feel like I've already heard these, and the things that seem new eventually are, the verse may have something that's interesting to me, and then the chorus has some boring shit they'd already done. It's way too much of just not being very adventurous with their sound when they are a band that could easily do that. But anyway,
Yeah.
moving on to number 6.
Okay, so this is where we turn a corner now into pretty positive territory from me here on out.
Yeah.
So my number 6, I surprised myself with this because I actually thought it was going to be like top 4, the fourth or third spot. Ended up being my 6th. I've gone with Soul of a New Machine.
I'm not saying.
I saw that look. But yeah. To me, this album, I love it. I'm gonna raise my hand and say I think Fear Factory hit it out of the park with all these albums going forward, in my opinion. To me, this album is Cookie Monster death metal with a techno edge,
Sure.
And I like that, I don't mean that as an insult. It's actually an era of death metal I'm actually kind of nostalgic for, when it still had the organic side to it.
I agree.
Even if you weren't a fantastic death metal growler, you could still have some charm to your voice. There wasn't a prescribed right way to do it. So everybody still had their own unique take on it.
Yeah, because at that point, Burton's delivery was closer to Barney Greenway from Napalm Death than anybody else. And
what a thought was life.
Yeah. And but you're right. Like that, around that time when this album came out, this to me was just another death metal album that had these other elements, because all these different death metal bands were putting out albums that did not sound like each other. And so I've grown very used to that. So when it stopped being that way, I got very annoyed. But
Embryonic comes to mind with this album. That they haven't quite nailed what Fear Factory would become, but you can hear the potential, and that's what makes this one of their most interesting albums, because they haven't figured out who they are yet. Which is
funny, because technically this is a half re-recorded album that they already recorded. So that's interesting.
Well, yeah, there's Concrete, isn't there? That was
which we're not talking about Concrete, because a lot of it was
re-recorded.
Yeah.
But with that, I know we say don't re-record your material. If it doesn't sound good, re-record it.
Well, I think in the beginning stages, if you do a low budget indie release or a demo, then if you get signed and you get a better producer, then take your most powerful shit and put it on your debut.
Yeah, you got We Care a Lot from We Care a Lot, and We Care a Lot from Introduce Yourself. Which
I have no problem with that, because they even changed some lyrics. They did a little bit something different with it.
Yeah. If you do add a little bit of spice, some herbs, some seasoning.
That just reminds me of that Eddie Izzard bit where he talks about Americans and British people pronouncing things differently. And he's
Yeah.
like, you say herbs and we say herbs because there's a fucking H in it.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't stop the people around, my way going, herbs.
I guess that's true.
Here, have you stuck herbs on your chicken? Right on.
What region was that?
That's, general southwest, Cornwall, Devon, Somerset, maybe. Yeah, that sort of. It's funny that in Britain, like the further south you go, the actual kind of nicer the conditions are, whereas the further north you go, you end up Stabtown, UK. Either way, I'm going into a fucking geography lesson.
Yeah.
Let's get on with Soul of a New Machine. So yeah. Soul of a New Machine, we've got murder. Death metal with clean vocals and a tambourine. That's something you didn't hear very often in 1992.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but also the first time I heard that song, I thought the singing part of the song was so creepy that I was just like, damn, how can they literally took, like, here's death metal, and some growly vocals, but then it's the singing part that really sounds eerie.
Yeah. And like that's the thing, is he's got an almost like machine-like pitch to his vocals that adds to the vibe of what they do, and it's kind of inherently not an emotional delivery, but that makes it that much more foreboding. Leechmaster, brutal echoes of the machine-like riffage and drumming that would come to define their sound going forward. Scapegoat is a pounding song, proper groovy. Crisis, Full Metal Jacket is an awesome movie. I'm just going to throw that out there. Crash Test, brutality incarnate. Fleshhold, same applies here. Lifeline, I know demanufacturers where they really came into their own, but this is still a really original concept for its time.
Yeah.
Death metal with clean vocals. What the fuck? Scum Grief, slow grooves with fast double kick. Anyone who watched our obituary episode knows that that's one of the musical keys to my heart. Natividad is a percussive industrial interlude. Big God / Rape Souls, chunky. Arise above Bringus. Arise above oppression. There it is. There's some good ping ding 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 ting ding 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 ping ding 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 ting ding 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 ride cymbal work going on there. Love that beat. I call it the Lombardo beat, otherwise known as ping ding 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 ting ding ding ding. Self-immolation is an extremely unpleasant way to die. Suffrage, I literally think, hear me out, Loco by Coal Chamber.
Yeah.
I genuinely think it's funny because we recorded this after our review of the new Jason Bieler and the Baron von Bielski Orchestra album, which we're going to.
Which, funny enough, it'll be coming out after this episode. So look forward to that.
Exactly. Where I was heading with that is, I genuinely think Coal Chamber heard the intro to Suffer Age, right, and the riff from Body Bags by Saigon Kick, mushed them into the same song, and then boom, you've got Loco.
Yeah. That song is awful. And that's coming from a guy that I really enjoy a lot of new metal, but that is like one of those.
I like Loco, but I can't give it a pass for the plagiaristic nature of it. There had to be some serious coincidental stuff, because I've heard not one but two songs that sounds exactly like that song. WOE, Proto Slipknot riffage. Desecrate is gnarly. Escape Confusion, Vibey Crusher. Manipulation, blasting closer. It's quite a long album. Maybe
Oh,
it
yeah.
didn't need here. That's what put it lower for me.
Oh, yeah.
And I was thinking maybe it didn't need to be 17 songs long, but as an original band, they had a lot to say, and I think that perfectly justifies a long runtime if you've stumbled upon something no one else was doing.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, can you think of anybody else who was doing that at the time, or were Fear Factory the first to do it?
To me, they were the first. Yeah. Everything about that album when I first heard it seemed so unique to me. But, there may have been smaller bands that I just didn't know about or something like that. I don't know. But, yeah.
Fair.
Love it. Love
Nice.
it. But that is not my number 6.
I didn't think it would be.
you already talked about this one. My number 6 is Aggression Continuum from 2021, their 10th album. And so at this point, I'm going to have a little bit more positive things to say about the albums, especially with the last 2 albums they've put out. I really feel like the one of the best qualities of those albums is I feel like the Fear Factory sound and recording technology have finally come to the same level.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
They're presented to me, sonically speaking, in a way more enjoyable and I don't know. It feels better. The way the instruments and everything is handled, it just sounds so much better now.
I was going to bring up there as well. It's good that you mentioned that because you can basically trace the lineage of the era we don't usually cover. I mean, we usually cover a lot more 80s, 90s stuff. We're branching out a little more, but
Yeah.
they kind of start at the peak and very end of the era that we really, really love.
Yeah.
With Soul of a New Machine. You hear like the birth of modern metal in the mid-90s, and then gradually the production in the 2000s just becomes pure ass.
Yeah.
And then over the 2010s, they slowly undo all those mistakes, and until what we've got now, Genesis and Soul of a New Machine.
Aggression Continuum
sound fucking fantastic as far as modern metal goes.
Yeah. So I don't like this album as much as Genexus, but I think sonically speaking, this is the best sounding Fear Factory album they've ever put out. So that alone makes me like, all right, well, I'll probably enjoy what they continue to put out even without Burton, because I feel like they'll be able to present it in a way that, because there's a few of their albums that just have fucking no bottom end whatsoever, and I'm just like, where the hell did that go? Makes no sense. But yeah, this was, and I also feel like certain bands go through like a slump where there's that young energy where they put out their early stuff, and then they go through like a phase where they just are kind of maybe not as motivated or have as many genuinely great ideas. But then I think a lot of bands, they get older and more mature, and all of a sudden they're able to present things in a way where even if they don't necessarily have anything new to bring to the table, they figured out how to like do what they do in exactly the right way to just make it enjoyable. And so I feel like modern Fear Factory is that, where they may not be giving me anything new, and they may still be lacking a lot of things I think that they could do better. But for what they do, which at this point, if you're a Fear Factory fan, you're fully on board with all of this, because like you probably don't want them to veer too much to one side or the other. But at least now I think it just sounds great. So I don't love this album, but listening to it, I was like, well done, guys. So yeah, that was my number 6, Aggression Continuum.
Nice. I have a cool slug. It's a little slug.
It's what I don't, something about that sound really like gave me the creeps.
Well, that's the segue back in.
Hey, boom. There you go.
Yeah. That's going to be my new clap thing from now on. I'm just going to wiggle the slug. That sounded rude.
Yeah.
Okay, so back in. This ain't Slug Factory, it's Fear Factory.
Yeah.
My number 5 Scary Warehouse album is Mechanize.
All right.
Yep. So Gene Hoglan. That is all.
Yeah.
That's it. Number 4. Yeah. Oh man, but yeah, this is the return of Dino, with Gene Hoglan on drums. Gene Hoglan is a fucking beast. Every time I've heard him on a recording, I'm just like,
Yeah.
I can't compete with that. And Mechanized, the opening track, had me on. After hearing Transgression and then following it up with this, I was like, oh, they're back.
Yeah.
They're back in the zone. Industrial Discipline, 1-2 punch of Art of Brutality, Fear Campaign. Like, Jesus Christ, Gene, insane drumming. Power Shifter, gnarly, great song. Christploitation, thrashy bashy kind of track. Oxidizer is a killer song. Controlled Demolition. Fear Factory doing brutal Fear Factory. This album is fucking crushing.
Yeah.
It's probably one of their heaviest. Designing the Enemy, some genty bends in this one. Reminds me of Meshuggah points. I've just realized in my notes I wrote Metallica Division. No, it's just Metallic Division. Short little thing. And Final Exit. For a band known for their chuggy stuff, they actually have a great ear for melody. They know when to put a cool melody in there. So yeah, with that's Mechanize.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Great shit.
That's not my number 5. My number 5 is Genexus from 2015, their 9th album. And honestly, pretty much everything I said about Aggression Continuum is the same here, only I think that these have a lot more really strong songs than Aggression Continuum. The production is great. Honestly, listening to this one after The Industrialist, I was so just like, oh, cool. All right, cool.
Thank God.
Yeah, because it sounds really good. It has a lot. I think that probably for the modern Fear Factory, this is the best album that they've done in a decade or something. I don't know. But at that point, anyway, who knows where they will go with this next thing. But I feel, did I read something that they're trying to be a little more of an organic band now, which I feel like will completely make them disappear into the void of other bands even more so than they already are. Because I'm like, what? No, you lean into the electronic stuff and just that's all I want them to do. And they're even going in
Fear Factory to do roots rock.
Yeah,
this is one of those.
They're re-recording or they're remixing Industrialist with real drums, and I'm just like, but you're going to hear it, and they're going to sound exactly the same.
Yeah, I mean, so they'll probably just end up with a better sounding kick drum, maybe at best. Like,
yeah, I just anyway, I think that Genexus is a very strong album, but they've done the same thing for so long now. And their new vocalist, like I saw a clip of him live and he sounded fine, but he didn't sound unique. And so I'm going to hold my opinions until I hear actual recorded music, because if he brings something new to the table, maybe I'll be on board. I don't know. But if it's literally just more of the same with another guy doing similar style vocals, then I'm not going to care. And it's not going to. So, it's for somebody else. It's for the big Fear Factory fans out there. But yeah, Genexus, good album, great production, good songs. I enjoyed it. Some killer riffs throughout. And cool. The mature Fear Factory sound to me is pretty damn good. Moving on to our top 4.
Very nice. Well, I'm going to jump straight off of that because my number 4 is Genexus.
All right.
And yeah, I actually have a little bit of I was a fan when this came out.
Hey.
To say for this one because I'd listened to Demanufacture for a couple years and I'd not really dived deeper into Fear Factory. I mean, to be fair, aside from Obsolete and some other albums, you didn't really need to at that point to get the Fear Factory idea. So when this came out, this felt to me like a spiritual successor to Demanufacture. But it's autonomous combat system, crushing thrashy opener, anodized, crushing riffs, uplifting choruses, dielectric. I remember seeing the video for dielectric on it was either Kerrang or Scuzz around the time it came out, and I thought, oh, those riffs. And then all of a sudden the chorus hit and I was like, this is really uplifting all of a sudden, I can't remember the lyrics, but
machines these guys are taking over.
Yeah. Sarah Connor, yeah.
Los Locos, kick your
ass. Oh, God, man. Sorry, that melted my brain there for a second. Soul Hacker. Again, like I said, I test sound systems with this song. If it can handle the opening drop with that 808 boom underneath that crushing riff. I'm using the word crushing a lot because it applies.
Yeah.
But yeah, Proto-Mac, technical poundage. That could be a song title in itself, to be fair. Genexus. I mean, these guys are cooking on this album. Church of Execution. I do detect a little bit of inspo from the budding gent scene that was really kicking off around this time. Mid 2010s. Everybody was like,
"Is that gone now?" I don't hear that term anymore.
It's still around, but people were like, okay, the meme is over. We're just gonna start calling this progressive again. But for a brief while, I went to college around the time that it was at its peak, and everybody was like, animals as leaders, monuments, and I'm partial to a lot of that stuff actually. I like a little bit of that from time to time, but I had a friend who had an 8-string, and I remember the first time I played it, and you see a fretboard even bigger than normal, but you're still just so tempted to go do 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 do.
Yep.
I can't say I blame them for having that low end focus because it's just so fucking fun to play. But yeah, Regenerate. The orchestral synthy stuff is always a cool addition to Fear Factory's music. Battle for Utopia, more riffage and uplifting choruses. And then finally, I will say, Expiration Date really shows off their ear for melody. I know that, from a lot of the people I've seen do videos on what their takes on Fear Factory are, they're like, oh, fuck Expiration Date, it sucks. I'm like, what? Because it's different?
Yeah.
I think it's a cool ending. I think it works really well as an album closer. It's a nice palate cleansing track.
Yeah.
Yeah, this album came out when I was just starting college. It fucking rules. This is modern metal done right. And
sure,
done right by arguably, one of the most important bands in forging what would become modern metal. I mean, you've got your Meshuggah, basically anything like post 1994 that sounded like this is the foundation of what we have today, and for better or for worse.
Exactly. All right, so my number 4, this is probably the one where people will get out their pitchforks, I guess, but it's still in the top 5. Demanufacture is my number 4 from 1995.
Wow.
So when this album came out in 1995, I was immediately out. I was just like, oh, because it's more polished, but at the same time, and it still hits my ears in the same way that it did back then, where I hear too much of what other bands had already done. Like they're clearly being influenced by other bands doing things at the time, but there's so much that just sounds like other bands. There's stuff that sounds like Prong. Prior to that, Prong had already done Cleansing, and they had already started doing this thing where it's a little more mechanical style stuff. So there's that in there. There's Godflesh in there. There's Killing Joke in there. There's Nail Bomb. Nail Bomb was the year before this. There are songs in this album I'm like, that sounds like it's off the Nail Bomb album. And so at the time, I'm just like, so they're no longer a unique band. They gave us a more polished album, but yet now it just sounds like a load of other bands. Doesn't sound like anything unique like the first Fear Factory album. So I immediately went, all right, guys, have fun with it. And then this is the album that people fucking go to, and I'm all like, really? Okay, because it's not bad. It's my number 4 because songwriting wise, I think there's a lot of really cool songs on here. It coming after Soul of a New Machine, this album to me, I'm just like, I feel like they could have gone down a more unique road, and they didn't. And I don't know. It doesn't grab me as much as my top 3. It's very well done. I really think that the biggest standout for this album is that they started to try to incorporate more electronic elements, but like I said before, they don't really go far enough, and I think it could have been cooler if that's what they had done. I would probably have more praise for this album if that's what they had done. If they had really leaned into the industrial side of things, because they had the production value at this time to do it, but they didn't really do it. But there's definitely standout tracks here. And I think when they started on this particular album, and for a lot of their albums, you brought up the point that there's like groove to some of their songs, but a lot of times the recording and the performances of the songs, it's too precise for any of the groove to actually move me. It's just very sterile sounding a lot of times. And this is where it starts. So it's, from my point of view, somebody who was so impressed with one album to then have this album that in hindsight, listening to it, I go, all right, I see why people really like this album, but I'm like, I also still see why I didn't get into it at the time, because it's very well done, not very interesting metal. So, but like, I think that very quickly they recover from that album, and start to move in their sort of own direction. But I just think this album has way too much stuff that sounds like other bands. And I also don't like that Burton C. Bell moved away from the more sort of like
growly to the more
demonic
shouty
type growl. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that I really loved about them, they just didn't really continue here, or they didn't push them forward in a way that I think was very successful. So that's why it is my number 4.
To be fair, I'm looking at it more as a person who, heard Demanufacture at a time where it was approaching its 20-year anniversary. I mean, you were there for Soul of a New Machine, so you were probably geared up more for another techno death metal album, and instead you got a groove metal album with synths on it at times, and I get that. Yeah,
it's the same reason why I never got into Machine Head and a lot of those bands from the mid 90s, because they all ended up doing stuff that to me sounds way too similar to other things and too similar to each other, where I'm just like, there could be good songs, but at that point, I mean, we've talked about this before. I was so spoiled by the music coming out in the late 80s and the early 90s. Every album was giving me something new, or something that I wasn't expecting, or something that's just like utterly enjoyable. But then everything just became like, oh, now metal is just this grouping of sounds, and we're going to keep move forward with this. And I'm just like, it really lost me. That's why, like, by the late '90s, I wasn't listening to metal at all, really. And but I found my way back. But yeah, anyway.
Fair enough.
But that was also your the first album that you heard too, right?
Yeah.
That's also very important. So
yeah. So with that, I'm gonna jump onto another first for me, which is, this is the biggest gap, I think, between the both of us. My number 3 is Digimortal.
okay.
And me personally, I hear it as they heard what was happening in new metal, and just leaned a little bit into that. And I've been on something of a new metal redemption arc in the last 6 months or so. I've just been hearing a lot of new metal, and I remember, God, back when I was about 15, 16, kind of turning my nose up at it and going, oh, thank God that's over. And now I look back and think, actually, do you know what? This all fucking bangs. The production on so many of these albums actually really moves you. The songs are fun.
Yeah.
And I kind of took a look in the mirror and I said, hey, man, you're known on the internet for being the fucking glam metal lover, so you can shut the fuck up about the public perception of maligned genre as far as talking about anything was. And I was like, you know what, Mirror Eddie, you're right.
I mean, really, they're very similar in that bands eventually became almost like they were wearing a genre Halloween costume when they when they would come out with their album.
Yeah, and both tragically died a very sudden downfall.
I really do want there to be. There are some bands that are being given the new metal tag, and the thing that bums me out about them is that nobody's embracing the things about new metal that I like. So everything is like Slipknot-esque, and I'm like, I want some bounce. I want a fucking DJ Lethal. Exactly. So that's what I want. I want fun. I want there to be like some movement, but it's like, oh, we're new metal, so we just do the Slipknot kind of thing, and I'm like, that's barely new metal. And so I'm just so I just want, and I want some, they don't necessarily have to rap, but I just like that's what I loved about the new metal that I actually liked, because I'm like, oh, it's metal and it's hip hop and it's together. And I love both those things. This is fun. But I think too many of them are now like, oh, we're new metal, but this song is all blast beats. I'm like, no, get the fuck out of here with that shit.
That's just death metal with a fucking sideways baseball cap on.
And it's a long braided colored beard.
Yeah.
And everyone's going to look to the side when they're playing their guitars that are really low.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. Berber dang. Do you even Berber dang, bruh?
Anyway.
Yeah. Digimortal, I know that you're not the biggest fan of this here fellow.
Nah, wasn't great.
Myself, on the other hand, I actually really like it. What Will Become, I thought was a killer opening song. Damaged, I love the sassy little synth in there. This is how I heard it. It sounds like the Sims 2 soundtrack on steroids. And like, I can see myself designing a living room to this while violently headbanging. Digimortal, all I could think during the intro was DJ Lethal, because there is that like scratchy thing going on, and I was like,
yeah,
you know what? I know they got Be Real on here. They should have had Fred Durst at some point. Like, it would have been incredible. No One, groovy. Linchpin is probably the first Fear Factory song I ever heard. Actually, I had Demanufacture, but I saw the video for Linchpin on TV.
Yeah,
and I saw it and I thought, these guys are. First of all, that is a large guitarist. Secondly, wow, this song sounds awesome. but it's I fucking love this song. I think it's their like most well-known song at this point, isn't it? I think it's like the most streamed.
I don't know.
But yeah, it's a catchy track. One of the things that cracks me up, I used to go on the YouTube comments of that song, and the "Can't Take Me Apart" is like sounds like a bunch of other words. It's real easy to do the like misheard lyric game.
Yeah.
And one that sticks in my mind is "Cat, give me your paw." You know. Yeah, there's so many good ones. That's like a rabbit hole. Do yourselves a favor and go check out the comments on that fucking music video because it's funny. Invisible Wounds, Dark Bodies, Fear Factory ballad.
Is that the first brackets of the episode?
It is, and it's funny because there's two brackets on this album. Acres of Skin, Chunky Riffage. That reads like a Cannibal Corpse title, to me, Acres of Skin. Back the fuck up. I love this. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. New metal was great. We all need to admit it and move on with our lives. I think this is what's kept us here for the last 20 years.
But that song doesn't give me enough new metal. It's like,
yeah, but I just
missing
like
a whole lot. Oh yeah, no, I love Be Real. This was as much as the next weed smoker,
Yeah. Bite Block is a head bopper. Hurt Conveyor. Now the highlight on this album for me was Hurt Conveyor. That bit where it, slows right down. I fucking love that bit. When that song comes on in the car.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying about like so many of their albums have those moments where you do go, oh yeah, but it's just the I guess the ratio of those moments and just moments is what makes them different Fear Factory albums.
For me, I totally understand every critique you brought up of this album, and this is one of those times where I can legitimately turn around and say, like you've said in the past, okay, I understand and respect every critique of this album. However, something it does, I like, and I think it's mainly the time period of which it's so glaringly from, and the fact that I'm in my new metal redemption arc, as I call it. There's little moments on there that allude to it, but and finally you get Memory Imprints, Never End, which is a big epic closer. Honestly, I mean, the trilogy is my top 3. It's
Oh, okay, all right.
That's how it just worked out. But yeah, Digimortal number 3. Yeah, it's a divisive album. I think it's the most divisive of all their releases.
Cool. My number 3 is Mechanized from 2010. Gene Hoglan.
Great one.
That's all I have to say. No,
same. Yeah.
There's a really good energy to this album. My only gripe about this album is that the production of it is so heavy on the high end that it gets kind of annoying to me. Like I like their stuff needs more thickness to it, and this one doesn't really have it. But that on the other hand, there's like a thrashiness to this album that they don't always do that I really enjoy. And I don't know if that's a Gene Hoglan influence. Like he showed up and he's like, "Hey guys, we're going to be doing some thrashiness in these songs, okay?" Because that's how Gene Hoglan sounds. Whenever there's an interview, he's like, like here's a clip of the music. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to do that album. Yeah.
Meanwhile, he just cracks out a death song and then just immediately goes back to
Okay. Oh yeah, I played on that album. It's pretty good.
Drums are good, okay.
Killer drummer, very understated personality. He seems like he's a great dude, but it's so funny as he's so laid back seeming. But Mechanized has a lot of killer songs. They sound to me like a reinvigorated band at this point. Yeah. And I just really enjoyed the album. Not just the Gene Hoglan bits, because he's a great drummer and was able to fully do all of the Fear Factory-esque drumming that they needed to do. But I just think that overall, it just felt like a more inspired album and a more. I just enjoyed it. There was a lot of good moments where it just kept me engaged. So Mechanize ends up at my number 3.
Nice. Cool. So my number 2.
I think we're gonna match up here.
Are we?
I think so.
A number 2.
Quite possibly.
My number 2 is Obsolete.
Yes, also my number 2.
Hey! So what's our matchup so far? We got Transgression and Obsolete, yeah? Is that
I think that was it.
today?
I think that was
We
it.
got 2. Hell yeah.
But yeah, Obsolete, also my number 2.
Nice. So it kind of doubles down, but it also expands off of Demanufacture with a bit more emphasis on the groove.
Yep.
Shock, the violent marriage of man and machine is perfectly scored in this opening track. Edge Crusher, fucking hell yeah.
That's a fucking tune right there, man.
Crush those edges, man. Hell yeah.
And despite what anybody says, I love the stand-up bass in that song and the scratches. That right there, I'm like, okay, bands do more of that. More of those things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Smasher / Devourer, my anaconda don't burn unless you got buns, son. There's like a part in that song that really reminded me of Securitron Police State 2000. The clean vocals in Fear Factory are unique to Fear Factory in that they're emotionally ambiguous, which, kind of benefits it. Yeah. Again, it feels like a machine kind of emulating a human voice, Descent is a melodic track, a nice change of pace. High Tech Hate, just rapid fire drumming in this. Sorry. Freedom or Fire, vibey techno metal. Obsolete is just gnarly stuff. Resurrection. Now, first song from this album I ever heard when I saw the music video for it when I was like 15 and thought it was cool as hell.
Yeah.
That like suffer through tragedy part. I was like, oh hell yeah.
Yeah.
Timelessness, ballady quote unquote closer. And then you get Cars. Here in my car, which I feel safest of all. Which actually,
as usual, I didn't include that because it wasn't on the original release. But
however, right, my big stipulation as to tacking a cover song on the end is that it is completely stylistically different to everything that you've heard.
Yeah.
AKA when they put, I know it's not on the original, but I've always heard it like this. When they put Easy at the end of Angel Dust, that to me is like, it's like an after dinner mint.
Do you want to know something that made me even more angry than people saying that that's part of the album? There's an ad that keeps popping up on Instagram that's like, buy these repressings of these classic albums. And one of them is Faith No More, Angel Dust. And on the printed thing and on the back, it says that Midnight Cowboy is an added bonus track. And I was just like,
okay, now that's fucked up.
Nobody can take that shit serious. You can't call yourself a legit repress that actually gave a shit if you think Midnight Cowboy wasn't on the album. So I'm just like, go fuck your repressings. Get the fuck off my Instagram.
Get that shit right, fuckers. God damn.
Yeah. At least my repressing of Angel Dust.
No way.
My repressing of Angel Dust, they had the I don't know what word I'm looking for. They were nice enough to, sure, they included Easy on the album, but it's not on the track listing. It just starts playing at the end of the album. So.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I was gonna say something like the slug be not impressed. For those who don't know, I have one of these slugs.
That sound is it's awful. I don't know what it sounds like.
I'm pissed off. It sound.
I know it's different, but it reminds me of the noise that Pauly Shore would make.
Oh, if you're all edged because I'm wheezing on your grindage, just chill. If I had the whole Brady Bunch thing going on at my pad, I'd go grind over there. So don't text my gig so hardcore, Cruster.
Oh yeah, that made me happy.
Nailed it!
That's one of my favorite movies. Anyway, did we? We're still on obsolete.
That was a bizarre segment. That could be the most insane tangent we've ever had.
I don't know where this. It's if we're look, everybody, we're on number 2. We're reaching the end here, and Fear Factory fatigue is a real thing. So so yeah, obsolete, third album. I love a lot of the tracks on this. I love it more than Demanufactured because I feel like they started to sound a little more like their own band. So the style that they were trying to pull off with Demanufactured, they're doing it better here with more memorable songs, and it doesn't just sound like influences of the band. They sound like, okay, well, here's what we were meaning to do, but now here's us as Fear Factory. Yeah, a lot of great tracks. Really, the only thing that I don't like about it is that I just like the sound of Soul of a New Machine better. I love the sort of off-kilter raw vibes of that album, and this one is a little more precise, and I don't enjoy that as much. But aside from that, Obsolete is a pretty damn good album. So it ends up also at my number 2, which brings us to our number 1, which is going to be just us talking about the first and second album at this point. So
Cool.
Go ahead. You're number 1.
Okay, so my number 1 is Demanufacture. Now this, I know that you have a complicated relationship with our friend here.
Yep.
However, this album has gone on to be incredibly influential.
Yep. Undeniable. Yeah.
This album, alongside other mid-90s albums by bands such as Korn, Meshuggah, Machine Head, is the foundation that modern metal is built upon. Let's dive right on in with the title track, Demanufacture. This is an absolute statement of intent. This song, it begins with that really locked in kick playing, that would be pretty much a defining feature from here on in. Yeah. I know that they did that on Soul of a New Machine, but it was less integral to the overall package. From here on in, that's like, if it's not in this, it's not a Fear Factory song. Yeah. You get Self Bias Resistor, epic song, Zero Signal, Terminator 2 is a great movie. Replica is the album's big hit. It's a great song. New Breed is fucking insane. Dog Day Sunrise is a cool cover. Now I will say, Body Hammer, I love this song. That riff is filth, the beat crushing, and that fucking anvil smacking ting sends chills up my spine when it kicks in. That it's probably my favorite. That is my favorite Fear Factory song, I think. Flashpoint, thrashy groovage, HK, Hunter Killer, extremely tight playing. Piss Christ is just brutal pounding, and Therapy for Pain is this epic 10-minute meditative track that closes out the albums. It has an end credits feel to it, and I feel like many of the albums that follow Demanufacture, with the exception of Obsolete and Digimortal, so many of these albums feel like a reskin or a sequel to Demanufacture, because it's structured very similarly. Yeah, a reboot. Yeah. Yeah, so to me, this is the album that I spent the most time with, so it's kind of ingrained in me that, this is the go-to Fear Factory album.
Sure.
But, Obsolete has really been a sleeper hit for me over the years, because now when I hear it, I'm like, I can't deny how much of an awesome next step it is. It's just that I spent so much time with Dean Manufacture. And it was kind of like a masterclass for me when I started taking up the drums to like master the double pedal.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why it's kind of like burned into my mind. I can never listen to that album and not do the foot stuff, which is incredibly dangerous when I'm listening to it while driving. I managed to persevere though. But yeah, like I say, it's great stuff. Over to you with the
Nice. My number one obviously is Soul of a New Machine from 1992. So I went into this fully ready to like find the album that I would go, oh, this is their best. It's just not the one that's my favorite. But that didn't happen because I had way too many gripes about it, and in the end of it, I was just like, look, they're Fear Factory. They have a thing, but they started off with a thing that to me was much more interesting. And
Okay.
when I first heard it, like I said, it was the first time I'd heard like a combo of like death metal and electronic elements with those eerie sung vocals. And I back then and now enjoyed the fact that there's an off-kilter, raw, sort of organic quality to this where it feels like it could kind of go off the rails occasionally,
Yeah.
but that makes me feel I enjoy the experimental nature of this. Like, I almost feel like they were like, can we pull this off? Is this going to work? And I almost feel like at the end of like the album recording, they were so pumped that they had done it. They're like, yeah, throw all fucking 17 tracks or whatever on the album.
Yeah.
Because they're like, we fucking did it. And so, but it still sounds fresh to me today. Like, it's like so many death metal albums from that time period. You can hear influences on later stuff, but they still sound so unique. And Soul of a New Machine to me still sounds like a very unique album at a time where there were no rules to death metal. It was whatever you felt like kind of throwing in there, you could do, or you could be as straightforward as fuck. It doesn't fucking matter. And I really loved it at the time because getting into heavy music, which is where I was, 1993 was the beginning of me getting into all the death metal. And it was always like, let's find the more extreme stuff. But if somebody was able to find that extreme band that was unique, that's when we were all like, oh, fuck yeah. Because it's like, and so this was a big deal at the time for me. I love this album. And it just sucks because they are one of those bands that I can safely say that I really love one album, and then the rest of them, some of them are really good albums and some of them are not very good albums, but none of them have a quality that brings me back to them again. And Soul of a New Machine is the only one that does. And I think it's just it has to do with when you come into this band, because I really do think if Dim Manufacture is the first thing you heard, it has a way different impact on you. And where Fear Factory continued to go is probably more appealing to you. But for me, I prefer this sound over metal that sounds like it was programmed on a computer, which is what they ended up becoming. But it makes more sense for their subject matter and what they were doing. But like I said, they went in that direction, but they weren't adventurous with it. They're like, yeah, you just like with that one album has programmed drums, but they just made the drums sound like the drums on all the rest of their albums. I'm just like, well, where's the excitement and experimentation in that you had on the first album? It's so, I'm one of those dudes. I'm one of those, I haven't liked them since the first album, but it's honest. I'm honest here. I enjoyed some of the albums on this a lot, but I can't see myself going back to any of them except maybe Obsolete. Obsolete's probably one I'll probably go back to and listen to, occasionally. But for me, Soul of a New Machine is just such a unique and awesome and cool album that it's hard to fuck with. But yeah, there you go.
Which is, totally fair. Your ears like what they like.
Yep.
But yeah, well, that wraps up Fear Factory, man.
Hell yeah, Fear Factory, all 10 albums ranked. And so, as usual, we're going to give them the salute, which is 3, 2, 1. Yeah! We did it!
Yeah!
Yeah, we did it! It's like that's pretty good. Anyway, so yeah,
we did it!
that wraps up this era of Fear Factory. Who knows how much longer the band will be going with their new vocalist or how that's going to turn out? But right now, we put a nice little bookend here and been like, all right, we've ranked them up to this point, and now it's up to somebody else. But yeah, that was good. That was good.
May concern. Over to you.
Yeah, I do. This is a really good example of why I really like doing this podcast / YouTube show, because I didn't really have very much fun listening to these albums, but as I was going through it, I go, you know what? But I know I'm going to have fun talking about these albums. So it ends up making it. Yeah, it makes it a better experience. But yeah, if you're a big Fear Factory fan, obviously, as usual on YouTube, put your ranking in the comments. And yeah, some of you have a lot to say about some albums, and I read those. Normally, I just have nothing to say in return, so I just give you a little heart. We appreciate it. We appreciate all the peanut butter platypuses. And next week is a very special episode because the new Metallica album is coming out on April 14th. And we are going to give ourselves a few days to listen to it and kind of, figure out what we think about it. And we're going to do an entire episode just talking about 72 Seasons, the brand new Metallica album. How stoked are you, sir?
I'm pumped. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
I waited 6 of the 8 years between Death Magnetic and Hardwired, and now I've waited, another 7 for this one. So yeah, I'm pretty hyped.
Yeah.
Especially considering that, there's no guarantee that this won't be the last one. Do you think they have another one in them after this one?
No idea. I think so. We'll discuss this on the next episode.
Yeah.
We're going to have a very long discussion about this, and so we hope that you join us, and it'll be fun because you know us. We're both huge Metallica fans. So we'll have a nice long discussion about the new album. So yes. So that's it for this episode of Cranked and Ranked. Thank you very much for joining us. Any parting words before we go?
Fear Factory, cool. Metal good.
I'm just gonna say that I'm very proud of my line. Fear Factory fatigue is a real thing. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us for Cranked and Ranked. We'll be back next week with I guess it'll be another Cranked and Reviewed is what it will be.
Yes.
But until then, keep one foot in the gutter, one fist in the gold. And we'll see you next time. And as usual, I'm going to throw it over to Mr. Eddie Sparxx to take us out.
Hostile!
But that was Pantera.
You did the Ricky Rackman thing, so I was doing the Headbangers Ball thing. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking of doing a later, dude. Later, dude.
Later, dude.
Later, dude. Yeah,
that'll do.
Yeah.